It's the work. We're in New York, so it's a very different environment and community and vibe because we're not in our cars separate from each other at great distances. The whole island of Manhattan is 24 square miles, and the theater district is 20 square blocks. So we see the actors. We get out there and see them. We get out there and see their work. That's much more important than the headshot. There are some amazing actors, really wonderful first-rate actors that you see on Broadway all the time. And they have the lousiest headshots in the world. And when I bring them in for directors, I joke with them and I say, you need to take my NYU class about what to do with your resume. And they'll say, yes, I do need to take your NYU class. So it's absolutely important to have good tools, of course, as an actor, a good headshot and a good resume, because it says something about you professionally and about your professional ability and about your respect for the profession and for yourself. So I don't mean to diminish that in any way. At the same time, I think in New York, there's a lot more stage that happens. And because it's live on stage, it's not like a film where it's stop and go and an actor who's misbehaving or doing a terrible job could be fixed or covered or made to look good. They're out there on stage. There's nothing to stop. There's no stop and go. It's a matter of what they're doing is what we're seeing. And we get out there, and we get out there to Broadway and to off-Broadway and to off-Broadway, and we see their work. That's I think the key difference. What they're presenting is their work, which we're much more interested in. And of course, a lot of the really good ones eventually get to LA or eventually are called upon by casting directors either through New York when we're doing searches here and we want to introduce that talent, or from LA casting directors who hear about them or who come and see the theater as well in New York and see them on stage and see their work and say, wow, that person is really special. That person does something really wonderful. And then, of course, there's always the question of if it translates to camera or not, which is another whole area. Well, first of all, as anyone who knows me knows, I'm not a big fan of that word should. I always believe in the word could, which is much more empowering. So I would look at what actors could do. So hopefully actors watching this will think of this as an opportunity more than a reprimand of some kind. What actors could do that they maybe don't, what actors do that they maybe would be better off not doing. The first thing is actors can do their homework a little more. There is an actor, a friend of mine, I know very well. We went to school together years ago, and he works on Broadway all the time. He goes from show to show to show all the time. He's currently employed on Broadway. I don't know if he's been unemployed 9 weeks in the last 20 years. And I had him as a guest speaker at a class I teach on preparing for the profession at NYU. I had him as a guest speaker, and he talked about the Broadway show he was in at the time and said, for that audition, I prepared 35 hours. I mean, that's average for me. That's average. I usually prepare 30 to 40 hours on an audition. And he's always working, so he probably doesn't have to audition as much as actors who are, always looking for work. But that really struck me. And very often young actors will come to me and talk and say, I want to talk about this because I had this audition and I worked so hard and I did really great and it just didn't come out well. They didn't respond. I didn't feel I did well in the room. And I'll say, well, how long did you work on it? And they'll say, oh my God, I worked on it a lot. And I'll say, well, how long did you prepare? And they'll say, I prepared. Oh my God, I prepared so much for that audition. And I'll say, okay, but like if you were to put the time together, the amount of time, how much time did you actually spend working on the material to prepare for the audition? And they'll say, well, on the subway, I read my sides over all the time, going back and forth, and I took time from my day job at work, and I read them, and I did it in my living room, and I said, okay, so add all that together, 20 minutes on a subway ride here, an hour in your home, whatever you spent, a little time at work, how much total? And they'll say, a lot, my God, like 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours I spent on that material. And I'll say, okay, and I'll identify this actor by name and say he works on Broadway all the time, and he works 10 times that on his side. So just so you know, you're 1/10 of the way there. And if you're looking for the reason it's not working because you're not preparing enough. This will sometimes shock them, but it's the reality, and the proof is that here's an actor who does prepare to that degree, who works all the time. He's not just getting hired on his physical type or his speaking voice or because he walks in the room and they like him. He's a great guy. The point is that he puts the work in. So most often I see actors underprepared in some way or other. And that's not to say they don't do anything and they come in irresponsibly. That is to say they're not doing enough to get the job. The extra amount of time they would need to put into it, which, as in the example I just illustrated, is 10 times what they're putting in, that'll get them the job in many, many cases. Not every time, but way more often than they're currently, the results they're currently finding. So that's the big one. It's in the preparation. It's in the coming in the room like a professional, walking in and making us feel like, yes, I can feel comfortable saying to my producer, to my director, you can rest your $12 million musical on the shoulders of this person. You can rest your $80 million film on the shoulders of this actor. It's a complicated process. Peter Stone, who was the book writer for many great musicals, 1776, Grand Hotel. I mean, he used to say, auditioning is a lot of nervous people in front of a lot of nervous people. And I think that's true. Everybody's juggling a lot. And there are producers in the room who have $12, $18 million of borrowed money for this production. And they want the actor to put them at ease that they will absolutely carry it for them. And a lot of actors don't embrace that responsibility in the way that they dress, in the way that they walk in the room, in the way that they introduce themselves, in the way that they leave, in the way that they do the work. They don't own that. So that would be something they certainly could do.